This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Pitching is going to be one of the big things for Arkansas baseball this weekend. I know Dave Van Horn was asked about that multiple times yesterday about multiple players as we welcome in our friend Scott Tabor in this morning. I want to start with Brady Tiger. Scott, before we let you talk, I want to let DVH talk about what he had to say about one of Arkansas's best pitchers.
It's up to him to pitch well and kind of earn his way to that number again. But he's feeling good. You know, knock on wood, it stays that way.
Scott, I don't know if you guys ever had the same injury, but I'm assuming at some point in your career you were trying to get back in the swing of things as a pitcher. Now, in your days, you pitched a lot more then than they do now, but as a pitcher coming off an injury, what's the key to getting back into rhythm on the mound?
A lot of it is your confidence. You get back in your rhythm in the bullpen and doing your bullpen work leading up to your start, but a lot of it is confidence when there's a hitter up there with a bat that can hit it back at you 110 miles an hour. It puts a little pause in your brain a little bit. And so it's just a confidence of getting back and knowing that you can throw the strike on the outside corner and snap off a curveball when you need to and change speeds and get into the rhythm and actually battle the hitter. That's all it is confidence.
Arkansas, like South Carolina, has injuries they're dealing with. One of South Carolina's starters is actually out for the series against Arkansas. For the Razorbacks, Dave also mentioned about Peyton Stovall. Doesn't look like he's going to be there this weekend. Looks like we're going to have Josenberger back. Don't know how much of him we'll see, and it doesn't look like it's clear for Wagner. Based on those guys, you got one infielder, two outfielders. Scott, you've watched a lot of them this season. Which of those guys is most important to get back healthy for this baseball team?
I think Josenberger has become one of the most important kids on the team. He's our leadoff guy. He's getting on base a lot. He's hitting with power. Once he gets on, he's a threat to steal. So he kind of starts the engine running for all the guys behind him. And I think if you really step back and look at it, you know, Van Horn's got the team where you want to have the team and where you want to have the program to where when you have some major injuries like this, it doesn't just derail your whole season. You have kids that'll step in and kids that aren't stars yet because they hadn't gotten a chance. They've got stars in front of them. So this is the time of year where you see some guys emerge as true stars. McLaughlin, for example, he would have never gotten an opportunity to get as many at-bats as he had if there hadn't been some injuries. So now he gets some consistent play and gets to get in and show what he can do. So I think Josenberger is the most important in that whole crew.
Yeah. I was talking with Phil Elson yesterday. See if you kind of have the same feel. And there's not really a stat for this, but does it feel to you like as we just watched the preponderance of all the games, there's been an inordinate amount of leadoff home runs in innings and also out of pitching changes? Like, you know, remember the Tennessee game, you had a leadoff home run in games 1 and 2. It seems like someone comes in out of the pen, first few pitches, the ball's leaving the park. Does that part of the game feel abnormally high to you this year, or am I just maybe hyper-focused on some Arkansas stuff?
So I had the pleasure to experience both ends. I was a starter through college. When I first started in my professional career, I was a starter. Then I went to the pen. Mm-hmm. And when you come out of the pen, you don't want to come in nipping at corners and throwing balls. And the last thing you want to do is come in and walk the first hitter that you face. So you have a tendency to throw something that you know you can throw for a strike. For most guys, that's fastballs. So hitters know the same thing. You know, they have scouting reports, so they know that. This guy always comes in and throws a fastball. Mm-hmm. And they'll sit on that first pitch. If a guy always does the same thing when he comes in out of the pen, hitters know what's coming. You know, the coach has told him he'll throw a curveball. He throws it 92.7% of the time, according to the analytics. Mm-hmm. And so they know what they're going to sit on that first pitch. And you see a lot of that just because of that. You know, it's up to relief pitchers to be able to throw 3 or 4 different, if they've got 3 or 4 different pitches, you don't have to throw a slider or a curveball or a fastball. You know, you can change it up every time. And sometimes they're not thinking that. They're thinking, I got to come in and establish my fastball and do this or do that. So that's where that comes from. And it's really just looking for a pitch and getting the pitch right about the zone that you want it and just leaning on it.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like we've seen more of that. And I was going to ask you about advanced scouting and what that it's leading into this, because if we're watching on TV, they go to a commercial break while there's the pitching change. And if you're at the ballpark, you see like Nate Thompson leave the third base box and they gather. And I imagine someone's looking at those numbers and analytics and telling the next batter, hey, here's what's likely coming. And it just seems like this year, as I've, watched games, seems like that, it's kind of like coming out of a timeout in basketball. You don't want to have an offensive foul or a turnover. And it kind of feels like that. Hey, we just came out of a timeout. It's a pitching change. The last thing you want to do at any point of the game, but particularly there, we brought you in for a reason. Is give up a home run.
Yeah, that was not the reason you came in. Yeah. Nobody comes in the game or wants you to give up a home run and then go ahead and get them out.
Yeah.
It's exciting for us. So, it's come in. Your job's to come in and get out of a pickle. You got a guy on second and third and one out. You want a strikeout, a pop-up, a short pop-up, or a ground ball to the left side of the field. So you pitch towards that, if you're thinking. You pitch to that end. Now, the hitter doesn't have to know what you want to do. I used to always like to have a ground ball to the left side of the infield if a guy on third base with less than 2 outs. So it's just everybody's different.
Yeah. One of the real bright things over the last couple of weeks when you battled through injuries has been Kendall Diggs. What have you seen in his game and his approach at the plate? Because he's been one of the guys kind of step in the gap with you. We talk about Josenberger and Wagner and those guys being out. He's been one of the guys to really fill in that void. What have you seen from him the last couple of weeks that's led to the rise in his performance?
I like Diggs in the leadoff spot. Diggs can run a little bit. He hits with pretty good average, but I'll tell you what I really like is the fact that he's got some pop. Having a leadoff hitter with some pop, not the guy that's going to swing and have a little swing and bunt or lay a bunt down or maybe flare one into the outfield, but have a guy that has an opportunity that with some pop to take it out of the yard. As a pitcher, it changes your mindset a little bit. Used to you would kind of nit and pick around the first two guys to get to the power guys, and I think Diggs leading off, staying in the leadoff, and Josenberger in the 2-hole. That's tough. That's tough on pitchers because now you got two guys who can go deep, but are also good average hitters, and they can both run. I like the way Diggs is playing. He's kind of become the catalyst of the team. He's taken Josenberger's spot, which is a credit to the coaching staff and the fact that they've recruited towards that over the years, and they've got a roster full of ball players, and this is a team full of ball players. I keep watching, and they're not great, but they're really good and they're really consistent. And in baseball, being consistent, because you play so many games, and being consistent is what's going to get you to the championship. What do they say? You win some, lose some get rained out. If you play consistent, those things will pan out for you.
Dave got asked yesterday about the possibility of being a top 8 national seed, and he talked about how the injuries and just them trying to focus on one game at a time. When you were playing for Norm, Scott, how did he keep you guys not looking ahead to the postseason, especially when we're as close as we are at this point?
He'd scream at us. No, it was different. It's a whole different era. You never really knew. You had a piece of paper that went around telling what everybody did over the weekend. You couldn't get on TV or get on your phone and find out what A&M did or find out what Texas did. You had to wait till printouts came out and they passed you around and kind of see where you are in the standings. It was more seriously just one game at a time. And it wasn't, we got to do this and we got to do this, we got to do this. The coaches worried about that more than anybody else did. We really need to win 2 out of 3. Well, you really need to win 2 out of 3 every weekend. And so it was different. You weren't playing for a national seed. You weren't playing for all the other things about worrying about hosting or not. No, we couldn't host. We didn't have lights. So it was just a whole different era. And but Norm kept us motivated just by the fact that that's what you did. You came out to play baseball, and I think these kids and this team, that's really more their focus than anything else. You watch them and they get out and they come out and they just play baseball. They don't think about the situation. That you take the brain out of it and it becomes a fun game again, and you execute to what you're recruited there for. And that's just kind of play good, hard baseball, and that's what they do.
I can hear you almost going back to your playing days there. And part of any team is camaraderie. Dave was talking about yesterday how this team competes not only on the field, but apparently they had a ping pong tournament in the offseason. What would you guys compete in with back in the day outside of just playing on the baseball diamond?
Well, the pitch staff, we did a lot of things together. We had cookouts together. We went fishing together. We went hunting together during the season. If you had any off time, just hung out together. The hacky sack was a big deal back then, and flip, the game of flip. We had some competitive games of flip, and if you've ever played it,
explain flip. You can't just say it that way. We didn't even know what that is.
You hit it with the you take it up. You can do it in a circle. You can do it in a line, and we played all these different variations. So somebody throws it, and you have to hit it with the inside of your glove. You can't catch it. You hit it with the inside of your glove to the other guy. Now they have to hit it with the inside of their glove back at you or back to one of the other guys. You tried to hit it off of them and have it go to the ground. And so you could wind up and I'm talking just wear some people out. So it was just a competitive game, and the coaches really didn't like it because sometimes somebody would take one off the mug or take one off the kneecap, and they were always scared somebody would get hurt. And it was just kids. It's like a bunch of 10-year-olds trying to figure out what to do with their extra time. So it was boys don't ever really grow up.
Last thing you need is anyone hurt right now with this team. You going to games this weekend?
Absolutely. We'll be there tonight and tomorrow. We have to come back on Sunday for Mother's Day, but we'll be there tonight and tomorrow, and I really, really look forward to it. I hadn't been to a game at Baum yet this year, and it should be and who would know that this would turn into a top 10 matchup, the beginning of the season. You're looking at the schedules. You just don't know how the season's going to go. And, you hit on it earlier, Ty, South Carolina and every other team in the conference is going through the same thing that the Razorbacks are.
Yeah.
And so it's just injuries are just part of the game. And you think, well, baseball, you don't do anything. Well, it's a tough physical game when you do it, all season long. You've gone through the fall ball, and you've gone through the season, the off season. Now you've gone through the season, and so it wears and tears on your body.
And on that subject, I found it really funny. I mean, people are blaming Hobbs for all these injuries, Scott. And I mean, you just referenced what South Carolina's going through. One of their starters is out this weekend. LSU's having issues. People aren't happy with Johnson. Both Johnsons down there. So it's not like it's just a Fayetteville thing. I mean, this is happening in the best league in all of college baseball. It's just a part of the game, unfortunately.
There's really not one thing you can put your finger on. You can go back to youth baseball and travel baseball and blah, 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 blah. The arm is not meant to throw a baseball overhand. It's just not. You look at softball pitchers, they can go every day. Overhand, it's just tough on your arm. All the things that you do with your joints. And if you ever look at a picture of a pitcher right smack in the middle of the pitch, his elbow, the contortions that their arm and their body's in, you just think, how in the world do you do that one time? Well, you're doing it so fast, and that's the thing. It's an explosion sport. Everything goes from static to explosion so quick. It's just not good for your arm. Your arm has to be conditioned, and that's one of the things they talk about. Well, they're throwing too much, and I've seen and read about some pitchers in the big leagues that are now turning over to throwing more because it conditions your arm. And there's 8,000 different ways to do it. I had some arm problems. I had some shoulder problems where I would mine was shoulder mostly. I tweaked it, actually reached up to grab my hat when it blew off in Omaha my freshman year. First time I ever had an arm injury, and I couldn't throw for 3, 4, 5 days. I missed a start. It's just weird. It doesn't take much to tweak it. So it's not any one thing or any one person. You do all you can and then just kind of ride it out.
Yeah. Speaking of arms and problems, we've seen Tigert back for a couple of weekends. 20 pitches has kind of been his limit coming out of a starting spot. What's your intuition? What's your gut tell you maybe his role will be this weekend against South Carolina?
Hopefully Brady will and be in the mindset now. He's not prodding his arm. He's finding out what he can do. He's been throwing bullpens and going through other workouts. And once you know the pain is not going to be there, once you know that you're well and you're back, then your mind can kind of catch up with where your arm is. He's gone out and been in live action twice. I think last weekend he was supposed to get up around 30, 35 pitches, but they stopped him at 20. They didn't want to get him stuck in the middle of an inning and hit 35 and have to bring him out. So they sent him down to the bullpen to finish his pitches. I think they'll probably bump him up to 50 or 60 pitches this week. So it'll depend on how he pitches, and a lot of it will depend on his mindset of instead of going in and trying to strike every guy out. You nibble a little bit, have them hit your pitch, and have them hit the ball. You just don't want them to hit it hard, and that'll keep your pitch count down, and that'll get you deeper into a ball game. Of course, that's simplifying it because you have guys up there hitting that are trying to work him deep into the count. They know he's going to be on a pitch count, and so they want to work him deep in the count. And he's got good stuff. He's got really, really good stuff, and his arm's fresh, and his body is fresh. It's not just the arm. It's your legs, it's your back, it's your hips, it's your shoulders, it's everything that go into pitching. So he'll be fresh, and he can be a big difference maker. And I think he'll be in a good position to get up. If he can get up 5 or 6 innings, it'd be fantastic.
I will say, how do you like this kind of what I'll call a starting relief role? You come in, you work 20 pitches, maybe an inning or two, and then they've turned it over to McIntyre. Or would you like to see Tiger maybe come out of the pen and put out a fire?
Well, that's always been his role, but they were working towards him being a starter, and they're doing this because they can control when he starts. As a reliever, you don't want to get him. As a reliever, you're up in the bullpen, and I'll never forget my freshman year. I was first out of the pen again. We're playing Texas at our place, first conference series. I bet I threw 300 pitches that weekend and never got in the game. But 300, go get them. You're in the next, this batter. If you didn't get this batter out, you're in. I'm out there just wearing it out in the bullpen. Line drive to third base, step on third, get a double play. Sit down. So you're up and down, and you may throw and throw and throw and throw. Those don't count as your pitch count, but they're pitches, and that's wear and tear on your body. So by starting him, they can control how he goes into a game. So he can come in, he's thrown this many pitches, he's warm, he gets to get his mind right, get a drink of water, and then go out and start the game. McIntyre is a little more seasoned. McIntyre is a little more flexible. So I think it's working out real well. And they want McIntyre to actually start an inning. Ideally, get 6 innings out of Tiger, come out at 65 pitches, and then bring McIntyre in. Hey. Or depending on the game, bring Gage Wood in and save McIntyre for the next day. So it's a strategy. They're having to hunt and pick and move things around. Kids are a lot more flexible than people think they are. They go, he's a starter. You can't relieve. It's just pitching. But they're trying to control the scenarios, what they're doing.
Hey, real quick, Tucker and Sherwood texted in, wanted to know what you thought about spin rates and the emphasis on that and all the analytics, TrackMan, all this, is what's leading to some of these arm injuries we were talking about a few minutes ago.
Well, it doesn't lead to an arm injury. It's an analytic. There's always been a spin rate on baseball. When I was playing, there was a spin rate. Nobody knew what it was, and nobody had any way of tracking it, but there was a spin rate. You can tell things from a pitcher just looking at the analytics. When the spin rate starts going down on a curveball, generally because they're starting to lose their legs. And that's what I used to always watch. When a guy starts losing his legs, his drive is a little bit less, his follow-through is a little bit less. They start standing up on pitches. You'll see them leaving pitches high, or their curveball doesn't really snap off anymore, just kind of rolls in there. Consequently, they start getting hit. They can tell by spin rate now when a pitcher's losing some velocity or a pitcher's losing his spin rate on his curves. They can tell now when it's a better time to go ahead and get him out now because he started losing it. Even though he may still be getting some guys out, they go by analytics. Everybody's a little bit different, and you'll watch some pitchers that the deeper they go into a game, their velocity's going down, but their fastball sinks a little bit more. They get tired a little bit, but their fastball sinks a little bit more. They're still throwing with great control. They can still change speeds, and sometimes go deep into a game and do better when they get a little bit tired.
All right, going to be a fun weekend. 2 top 10 teams, kind of the center of college baseball this weekend's at Baum Walker. Scott, we'll see you at the ballpark.
All right, look forward to it. Go Hogs.
BetOnline.ag is your number one source for all your basketball info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest player reports for this year's pro basketball playoffs. BetOnline is always your sports information headquarters this season, as we have you covered for all your sports wagering needs. Basketball, MLB, NHL hockey, right down to UFC and boxing. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games you can play right from your home. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Be sure to use our promo code BELIEVE to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's BLEAV. BLEAV. Bet online, where the game starts.